Want some thrills and suspense with your romance? I've got the recommendations for you. Hi guys, welcome back to the Under the Covers channel. I'm Francesca and today I have some recommendations for romantic thrillers. A little bit of darker books that are going to keep you on the edge of your seat, full of suspense, and of course, full of romance as well. I shared these recommendations during our Novel Nights live show. We are live every single Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so come and join us for even more book recommendations. And if you're ready to add a little suspense to your reading life, let's get right into the recommendations. My first recommendation is a series that I picked up on a whim. I saw it online and then it didn't really feel like it was going to be something I would like because I do judge books by the cover. And the original like individual covers for each book were not the best. But I was like, you know what? It was somebody really trust their recommendations and I picked it up and I couldn't do anything else in my life until I read all 5 books. It took over my life. So I highly encourage you to read this series. It's the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey, kind of like a play on the pen name of the author, Stabby. So this series basically is like Criminal Minds and Dexter vibes. The heroine, she's basically seeking revenge. And I don't want to call her a serial unaliver, but basically that's what she is. She's kind of more like Dexter, like a female Dexter. And the hero of this story is the FBI profiler that is working her case, and he's basically chasing her. And they meet while he's in town researching, and he doesn't know that it's her, but he immediately falls in love with her, and they have this relationship. And of course, like she's playing and toying with him. And it was such a fun, addictive book series, I should say. Each book ends in a cliffhanger. So if you're going to read this series, like just be prepared to have the time for 5 books. They're not very long. They're quite short books, but you need to read all 5 of them because the cliffhangers are so bad that you have to read the next one and they're all worth it. So it's such a great story. It's at times really dark, especially in where it's telling the backstory of why the heroine is seeking revenge, especially in this town, which is her hometown from when she was a kid, and the people that she's killing. So definitely maybe read some trigger warnings. I would say read trigger warnings for anything that I'm recommending today, or you can like message me and ask me because some of them are quite heavy and some of it is on page, but I really loved having this female kind of killer. It was an interesting perspective, also psychologically. It was an interesting perspective. And it was just like really fun to really like her as you're seeing her committing these horrible things. So, definitely one that I highly enjoyed and definitely recommend. The second one, in a way, I picked it up because I thought it would be like Mindfuck. It's Lights Out by Navisa Allen. I don't know how you say her name. I actually just finished it this week. And so it's not like Mindfuck. I thought it was going in, but it's not necessarily like it. But it does have a very dark vibe. And it's a stalker romance. The heroine is a nurse at the ER, and she basically has no life except her work. And her only distraction, which she really enjoys doing, is watching thirst traps on social media of masked men with knives and blood play and all kinds of stuff. So there's this particular account that she follows that is like her ultimate boy that she's, she really likes him. And so she ends up sending a screenshot, or I think she shares the video with this guy that she has like a hookup relationship with, but they haven't really seen each other for like 2 months. But she sends this screenshot to him and she's like, what about if we act this out? You can like break into my house and come with a knife or something and have like a night of interesting sex. And he's like, listen, we haven't hooked up in 2 months. I'm with somebody else and I'm not into that. And his roommate is the masked man and he sees it. So of course he's like trying to find her through the comments and like trying to figure out who she is and all this stuff. So he starts stalking her. breaks into her house, and like all of this starts happening. So they start developing this very weird relationship because there's a lot of dubious consent happening. And then she actually gets a real stalker that wants to do bad things to her. So it gets much more intense from there. So I really enjoyed it. It was one of those books where you question yourself, like, why am I liking this so much? But it just really worked. I don't know if it's because of how the author writes it, but it just really worked for me. It was really, really good. It's not even that there's so much steam, so I wouldn't say it's super smutty, but it was just really, really good. Whether it's the psychology of why they're either one of them are liking what they're doing or any of it. All of it was really, really good. So I really enjoyed it. Now, for the next one, I'm going to go a little bit less dark. And it's a whole series that I think should be on like must reads for anybody that likes thrillers with a little bit of romance. And it's the In Death series by JD Robb. The first one is Naked in Death. And it's a super long series. So don't be intimidated. What I did to read the series, and I'm about halfway through it, is to pick up a book every month. And it's kind of like a book that I look forward to reading every month because they are so good. And it's basically our heroine is a cop in New York City, and it's set in the future. This is the pen name of Nora Roberts. She writes this series, kind of like futuristic. So she wrote it in the 90s, and it's technically set in like, I think, 2050. So it's not as futuristic now, but it holds super well the test of time. She's a cop, and every book she has to investigate a different murder. And the romance in it is with this man that she meets in the first book. He's a billionaire, of course. And it's such a good romance because she is so broken, and there's many reasons why she really needs to heal before she can be in a serious relationship. And you're seeing that romance develop throughout the whole series, you know, going through them getting together, getting married. There's different like sub romances as well with other members of the investigative team. It is such a good series. It seems so weird to think that after 50 books, it could still be that good, but it really still is because I don't know. I mean, Nora Roberts, she can do no wrong. So definitely one that I recommend. I definitely enjoy her JD Robb more than her Nora Roberts, but she also has plenty of romantic suspense as Nora Roberts too. The next one is actually an author that I think does romantic suspense and romantic thrillers really good, and that is Shiloh Walker. So the book that I'm going to recommend here is the first in a trilogy. And you have to read the whole trilogy because they're looking for the killer throughout the whole trilogy. So the first one is If You Hear Her, and the trilogy is the Ash trilogy. The series is basically set in a small town, and in this book, the heroine is blind. She was not born blind. And so she's such a, what's amazing here is I really love both of the characters. She's very strong. She overcame all of her issues and persevered. She wanted to become a chef, and she didn't let what happened to her becoming blind stop her from that. So she works as a chef at a B&B in the small town. And so she lives alone also. She's very confident. She's never let her disability stop her from living a normal life, dating, and all of this stuff. And so the book starts out, her house like borders the woods, and she hears a woman running through the woods in the middle of the night screaming for her life. And she calls the cops, and nobody wants to listen to her. Nobody wants to do anything with it, but she's determined that she has to help this woman because this woman is out there. And there is a big city cop that is in their town. He's recovering from an injury, and he had inherited a house from his, I think, grandmother or aunt or something. And so he's in town, he hears what's going on, and he's supposed to be just trying to figure out if how he's going to go back to work. He does have the injury. So it ends up being that he's the only person that believes her, and they have to investigate together. And obviously they fall in love. And it was just such a great book. I love both of the characters. They're really strong characters, both of them, not like one is more than the other, which is something that I really like. It's a great dynamic. And also, like I said, you do have to follow the whole trilogy to get the resolution on the killer. and like what's going on in the town. But also, what I found really interesting with this one is there are parts of the book that are written in the point of view of the killer and also in the point of view of the victims. So you're getting like a really full overview of what's happening. And I'm really good at guessing killers in books, and this series really kept me guessing, especially in the first book. I could not figure it out. So really enjoyed it. And actually, we were talking about psychic romantic suspense, which also Shallow Walker has a series, which is psychic romantic suspense. I think it's called the FBI Psychics. So then the last book that I have is A Cartel, also very dark, and it's The Paper Swan by Layla Attar. All the trigger warnings here for sure. So in this one, we have a rich girl, and her father is an American businessman. You would think that she would be like this spoiled little princess, but she actually is not, which I thought was really refreshing. But you're in the action from the moment the book starts. She gets kidnapped. I don't want to say too much because this is the kind of book like you don't really want to know what's happening around the corner. But basically, she gets kidnapped, and there are many reasons you will find why things happen. But her kidnapping does go through some of the book, and it gets pretty gruesome. And she does have to go through some things. Of course, there's some Stockholm syndrome that happens, and eventually, they act out on their feelings. But definitely check all the trigger warnings. There are some things that I would say sometimes you may have your limits on what you can think a hero can come back from. And there may be some things that he does to her during captivity that may cross some people's lines. But what I really love about Layla Attar is that she can write really beautiful prose. And this book was just epic. It was so good. It's also really gritty and really intense. Again, Mexican cartel. The hero is abducting her because he wants revenge against her father. It gets pretty dark and intense, but so good. It is such a good book. So, and I think that one is on Kindle Unlimited. I loved it. And there you have it. Those are some of my recommendations for romantic thrillers that I have for you. You can always find even more on the blog. I will leave a couple of links in the information box down below. If you are interested in reading more about the Mindfuck series by St. Abbey, I do have a whole series guide for that series on the blog. I will also leave that link down below. All of that and more can be found at underthecoversbookblog.com. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. We'll be in your inbox every single Sunday with all of the latest bookish content that we post every single week. And if you want even more content, you can join our Substack community. Remember, we're running a 20% lifetime deal between now and the end of December 2024, and that will be your price as long as you stay subscribed. That will also give you access to our book release database and trope database, so you can find even more books at the click of a button. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!